Welcome to Newsmax TV. A feisty congressman from Texas and former presidential candidate is getting a lot of attention and bipartisan support for a bill he reintroduced to much acclaim after it was first rejected about 26 years ago. Joining us on Newsmax TV is Congressman Ron Paul of Texas. Welcome to Newsmax, Congressman.
Thank you. It's nice to be with you.
Talk to us about House Resolution 1207. Exactly what is the Federal Reserve Transparency Act?
Well, it's pretty much what it says. We want transparency of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve operates in total secrecy, and now with the financial crisis that we're in the middle of, people are demanding that we know more about how this came about and who was responsible and who got bailed out and who were the special interests behind this whole business. And it's very important that we know exactly how the Federal Reserve works, so that is my goal. The bill doesn't legislate monetary policy, doesn't change policy as much as just exposing the Fed to what they're doing. We want to know what kind of transactions are going between, say, the Federal Reserve and Goldman Sachs, and the Federal Reserve and the IMF, and Federal Reserve and foreign banks and foreign central banks. So we just want to get to the bottom of what the Federal Reserve's been doing and what they're getting away with.
All right, the resolution has developed a lot of support. Barney Frank and Karl Rove actually agree on an audit principle. You've introduced this idea before without success. Why all the support now?
I think it's because of the conditions in the country and the people are waking up and demanding it. And to me, this is very good. I think that before, when I introduced this over the last 20 years or so, there were very few who would co-sponsor it because things seem to be okay. When you're inflating and when your credit is good and you can borrow money and the economy is growing because of the financial bubble, people aren't too concerned about philosophy and the condition in the banking system and the monetary system. Now, a lot of people are very scared. Some try to talk their way out of what's going on right now and saying the recession/depression has ended, but from my viewpoint, we're just at the beginning, and the American people know that, and they want to look into that whole problem, and that's why we're getting the support, just to search out and find out who the culprits are.
The bill has the support of the majority of Congress with more than 250 co-sponsors, and it will likely move through the House. But critics say that its fate in the Senate and before President Obama is much less certain because it's adverse to Obama's regulatory reform. What are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, I mean, the powers to be are going to be very, very much opposed to this. Already the Federal Reserve, for the first time that I know of, they've hired a lobbyist to lobby his congressman against this bill. Senator DeMint brought it up in the Senate, and although a similar process was done about 3 times in the bill he offered this, they ruled him out of order and said he wasn't allowed to do it because it was legislating on an appropriation bill. So no, the administration, the Federal Reserve, the banking system, the powerful special interests, and I imagine top leadership in both parties will eventually come down against this bill.
Some are saying that an audit is going to threaten the bank's ability to independently conduct monetary policy. You agree or disagree?
Well, let's hope so, but independence is not necessarily a good word. If you said the secrecy of the Federal Reserve, people say, oh yeah, they shouldn't be doing this in secrecy. But they claim they're independent and there's no political pressures. No, the political pressures come from the powerful financial interests on Wall Street. It comes from the president. There's been books written on how the president can influence the chairman of the Federal Reserve System because he's appointed and reappointed by the president. So there's a lot of politics involved. The question is whether it should be transparent, open, and Congress have a say, and should the people know about it.
Is this your biggest concern about the Fed right now? What other issues related to the agency would you like to see addressed?
Yes, the audit is important. The audit is sort of neutral on policy, but ultimately I want policies changed. I don't think that we should have a Federal Reserve System at all because it is not authorized in the Constitution and causes a lot of trouble. It's the way you finance big government. It allows governments to finance war and welfare against the Constitution. So I want to eventually address that because at the rate we're going to destroy the dollar. The financial system has collapsed, which was based on a dollar reserve standard, and it has been totally fiat. totally paper since 1971. It was predictable, and it came to pass that that system collapsed. You can't rebuild it. They have to have a new monetary system, and I want that monetary system to be constitutional and sound and commodity oriented. I do not want them to go in the direction that they're moving, and that is moving this responsibility to maintain a worldwide reserve currency, going to the IMF and allowing more power to world government and let them print the paper money of the world. That would be a very, very unhappy outcome of this crisis. I want to move in the direction of sound money, not enhancing the power of those who want to control paper money.
Okay, switching gears real quickly, the deficit is now over $1 trillion. Have you lost hope that Obama's stimulus plan is going to work?
Well, yes, the deficit at the current time is over $1 trillion, but if you look at it slightly differently about how much the national debt's going to go up by the end of the year, which is not far off, the national debt's going to go up over $2 trillion. So the stimulus plan is a total failure. The purpose was misdirected. It was to prop up bad debt. It was trying to keep prices up. And it was doing exactly the same thing that caused our crisis. It was too much spending, too much borrowing, and too much inflation. Inflation, that means the printing of money by the Federal Reserve. So it has failed, it's going to continue to fail, and to keep doing more and more is just digging a deeper hole for all of us. The American people know it's not working, and yet policies aren't changed. They will not consider the basic thrust of the fact that Keynesian economics is at fault, and it's been around for a long time. It created our problem, and you can't solve the problem with more Keynesian economics. You have to have free market economics because the country basically doesn't want to go to a socialism, even though there's a large segment that's pushing very hard. Just think, the government's been buying up banks and insurance companies and car companies, and now they're going to socialize medicine. So it's a real contest between those of us in America who believe in freedom and the free market versus those who would socialize our country.
All right, House Democrats have introduced a $1.5 trillion health care plan. What do you think about their way to have it paid for, slipping most of the bill to the rich employers and medical providers?
I think it's a daydream and dangerous. I mean, they want to get $1.5 trillion out of an economy that's weakening. If anybody's making a significant amount of money, that just encourages them to go offshore. If they're a small company or a business, they're going to want to go offshore. Besides, it just might bankrupt the country. The number of people who are making $300,000 a year, as the economy weakens, they're going to get less and less. Their projections are always wrong on how much it's going to cost. Their projections on revenues are always wrong. So the fact that they're stating it's going to cost $1.5 trillion, it's a pipe dream. They have no idea what it's going to cost. It's a bureaucratic nightmare. It's going to cost a lot more. Revenues will go down, and the quality of care is going to crash. So it makes no sense whatsoever, and hopefully the American people will wake up and say, what's the matter with the old idea that doctors and patients ought to decide what kind of medical care they have and not have the government run it? It's been tried and tested throughout the world, and quite frankly, it's a failure.
All right, Congressman Ron Paul, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.
Homeland Security advises every family to have an emergency radio. It's essential for severe weather, power failures, even terrorism. Now Newsmax is offering you an emergency radio absolutely free. Just pay shipping and get the radio, plus a free trial subscription to Newsmax magazine. Go online to Newsmax.com to check out the details of this great offer.
Get your free emergency radio today. Just call 800 Newsmax. Make sure your family is protected. Call now, 800 Newsmax.